Captain Heian pressed his face against the viewport of his survey ship, watching the massive dark vessel drift silently through space. In 30 years of deep space exploration, he had never seen anything like it. The ship was enormous, easily 10 times larger than his flagship, with a hull that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange blue energy patterns pulsed along its surface like veins carrying alien blood. "Captain, the energy readings are off the charts," called Officer Vex from his station, his 6 tentacles dancing across the control panels with nervous precision. "Whatever powers that thing, it's not fusion, antimatter, or anything in our databases." Dr. Kira, the expedition's chief scientist, floated beside him in her environmental suit, her crystalline body refracting the bridge lights into rainbow patterns. "The design is completely foreign. No known species builds ships like this. The metal itself seems to be some kind of living composite." Heian's crew gathered around the main display, watching as their scanners penetrated the mysterious vessel's hull. What they found inside made them all fall silent. Thousands upon thousands of life signs, all in some form of suspended animation, stretched throughout the ship's vast interior. "Sir, permission to board?" asked Lieutenant Knox, the ship's security chief. His armored exoskeleton clicked as he shifted nervously. "Granted, but we go in careful and quiet." The boarding party suited up and crossed the void between ships. They approached the alien vessel. Hugh noticed something disturbing. The ship's hull was warm, almost body temperature, and it seemed to pulse with a slow, steady rhythm like a heartbeat. The airlock opened without any input from them, as if the ship was welcoming them inside. The corridors beyond were dimly lit by the same blue energy that covered the exterior. The walls were smooth and organic-looking, with what appeared to be neural pathways running beneath the surface. "The atmosphere is breathable," Dr. Kira announced, checking her instruments. 21% oxygen, perfect pressure. "It's almost like this ship was designed for our kind of life." They moved deeper into the vessel, their footsteps echoing strangely in the vast hallways. The corridors branched off in all directions, each one lined with cylindrical chambers that stretched from floor to ceiling. Through the transparent aluminum of each pod, they could see humanoid figures floating in some kind of preservation fluid. "By the 7 moons," whispered Officer Vex, approaching one of the chambers. "They look almost like the ancient Terran myths. Bipedal, no natural armor, soft skin." Hune studied the sleeping figures. They were smaller than most galactic species, with only 2 arms and 2 legs. Their skin was various shades of brown and pink, and they had hair growing from their heads in different colors. They looked fragile, almost primitive compared to the advanced species of the galaxy. "Captain, you need to see this." Dr. Kira's voice was filled with amazement and fear. She was standing before a massive computer terminal, her instruments scanning the alien technology. "These readings are impossible. According to this, they've been in suspended animation for over 50,000 years. "That's impossible," Han replied. "No species has that kind of technology. The longest successful cryo sleep on record is barely 500 years. "Sir, there's more," Vex added from another terminal. "The ship's power source is completely stable. After 50 millennia, it's still running at full capacity. Whatever they used to build this thing, it's beyond anything we understand." Kira attempted to interface with the ship's computers. Something went wrong. The moment her neural probe touched the system, alarms began blaring throughout the vessel. Red warning lights bathed the corridors in an ominous glow, and a mechanical voice began speaking in a language none of them recognized. "What did you do, Hen?" demanded. "I don't know. I barely touched their system, and it activated some kind of awakening protocol." The pods around them began to hum with increased activity. The preservation fluid started to drain, and the life support systems kicked into overdrive. Throughout the ship, thousands of chambers were coming online simultaneously. "We need to leave now," Lieutenant Knox shouted, but it was too late. The first pod directly in front of them hissed open, and steam poured out. A woman with long dark hair slowly sat up, coughing up the last of the preservation fluid. Her eyes opened, revealing an intelligence that seemed to pierce right through them. She looked around. taking in her surroundings with remarkable calm. For someone who had just awakened from a 50,000-year sleep, when her gaze fell on the alien boarding party, she showed no fear, only curiosity. "Jin," she said softly, touching her chest and then pointing to herself. More pods were opening. Throughout the ship, the sound of awakening humans filled the corridors as they emerged from their long sleep, each one adapting to consciousness with disturbing speed. Jin swung her legs over the edge of her pod and stood, her movements fluid and controlled. She studied each alien in turn, her eyes analyzing them with predatory precision. The galaxy was about to learn what humanity truly was. Jin's eyes snapped open with perfect clarity. No grogginess or confusion that should have followed 50,000 years of sleep. She sat up in her cryopod, her movements smooth and controlled as preservation fluid dripped from her body. Captain Heian watched in fascination as her pupils dilated and contracted rapidly, like a camera lens adjusting to different light levels. "Fascinating," she said, her voice carrying strange harmonics that made the alien crew's equipment buzz with interference. "Your language has evolved beautifully. How can you understand us?" Dr. Kira asked, her crystalline body flickering with nervous energy. "We've never encountered your species before." Jin tilted her head, studying the alien scientist with unsettling intensity. "Your brain patterns are quite loud, Doctor. Neural frequencies broadcast in predictable waves. My cortex has been analyzing your speech since the moment you entered." "Our ship." She stood up, water cascading off her enhanced physiology. What the aliens had initially mistaken for primitive biology was revealing itself to be something far more complex. Beneath Jin's skin, faint blue lines pulsed with energy, creating patterns that shifted and moved like living circuits.
"Officer, her."
"Bio-readings are impossible," Officer Vex whispered to Captain Heian. "Her brain activity is processing information at quantum computer speeds, and those energy patterns in her body, they're not natural." More pods throughout the ship were opening. With mechanical precision, the sounds of awakening humans filled the corridors, but unlike normal beings emerging from long sleep, these creatures moved with immediate purpose and awareness. A tall man with broad shoulders emerged from a nearby pod, his dark eyes scanning the alien crew with predatory calculation. "Jin," he said, his voice carrying the same strange harmonics. "Status report. We're in the Andromeda Spiral, Tay. Approximately 50,000 years from home. These beings found us drifting in deep space." Jin's tone was clinical, as if discussing the weather rather than an impossible journey across time and space. Tay nodded, his enhanced musculature rippling as he stretched. The aliens could see now that his body was laced with the same blue energy patterns as Jin's, but his were more pronounced, forming complex geometric designs across his chest and arms. "The awakening protocol is spreading throughout the ship," reported a woman who had just emerged from her pod. Her name was Min, and she moved with a fluid grace that defied gravity. When she walked, her feet barely seemed to touch the ground. "All primary systems are coming online. The ship is beginning its reconstruction sequence." Captain Hayne felt his blood run cold. Reconstruction sequence? Jin approached the alien captain, her bare feet making no sound on the metal floor. "Our ship has been in hibernation mode, Captain. Now that we're awake, it's returning to its active configuration." She gestured to the walls around them, which had begun to shift and change, revealing hidden technology and weapon systems. "This is impossible," Dr. Kira breathed. "Living ships are theoretical at best. No species has ever achieved true biomechanical integration." Dr. Min said softly, her voice carrying an amused tone. "We stopped being a single species long ago." As if to prove her point, more humans emerged from their pods throughout the ship. Each one was different, enhanced in ways that boggled the alien observers. Some had skin that shifted between different textures, others had eyes that glowed with inner light. A few displayed obvious cybernetic modifications, but integrated so seamlessly with their biology that it was impossible to tell where flesh ended and machine began. "What are you?" Lieutenant Knox demanded, his security training overriding his fear. Tay smiled, revealing teeth that were too sharp and too perfect. We are what your galaxy will become, Lieutenant. Evolution accelerated beyond natural limitations. Jin walked over to the alien ship's communication array, her fingers dancing, over controls that shouldn't have been compatible with her biology. Yet somehow she interfaced with their technology as easily as if she had designed it herself. Fascinating, she murmured, her consciousness flowing through the alien ship's computer systems. Your species has been exploring space for over 3 million years, yet you've barely scratched the surface of what's possible. How are you doing that? Officer Vex asked, watching his own instruments being accessed by an impossible alien intelligence. Adaptation, Min replied, her form beginning to shift slightly as her body adjusted to the ship's artificial gravity. You learned to become whatever the situation required. Your technology, your biology, your very thoughts, they're all just different forms of information to be processed and integrated. Captain Hune tried to back away, but found his path blocked by another awakened human. This one was different from the others, his body showing more obvious mechanical modifications. Fiber optic cables ran along his arms like artificial veins, and his eyes glowed with a soft blue light. Don't be afraid, Captain, Jin said, her voice now carrying multiple tones as she spoke through both her organic vocal cords and the ship's communication system simultaneously. We're not here to destroy you. We're here to save you. Save us from what? Hune managed to ask. Jin's smile was cold and beautiful and terrifying. From the same thing that destroyed our galaxy? From the same thing that made us into what we are now? We didn't flee from home, Captain. We consumed it, became it. We are the survivors of the greatest catastrophe in galactic history, and we learned to thrive in the aftermath. The ship around them continued to transform, walls flowing like liquid metal as the vessel awakened fully. Through the corridors, they could hear the sounds of thousands more humans emerging from their long sleep. Each one a perfect fusion of biology and technology, evolution and engineering. The galaxy was about to meet its new gods, the emergency. Beacon from Captain Hyan's ship reached every corner of the galaxy within hours. On Centauri Prime, the capital world of the Galactic Federation, alarm bells rang through the crystalline towers that housed the High Council. Species from across the spiral arm gathered in the Great Assembly Hall, their varied forms creating a symphony of worried chatter. Admiral Zorks, a massive creature with armored plates and 6 powerful arms, stood before the holographic display showing the mysterious human vessel. His deep voice boomed across the chamber as he read from the ancient data archives. The records are fragmentary, but they're clear enough. 50,000 years ago, our scouts detected this species in the neighboring galaxy. They called themselves humans. Even then, they were unlike anything we'd encountered. The hologram shifted, showing grainy images of primitive human settlements that had somehow survived in the most hostile environments imaginable. Worlds that should have been uninhabitable were thriving under human influence. They adapted to everything, Zorks continued, his voice carrying a note of fear that chilled the assembled delegates. Radiation that would kill most species made them stronger. Gravity that would crush our bones barely slowed them down. They turned every challenge into an opportunity for growth. Chancellor Vex, leader of the Telepathic Union, projected his thoughts directly into the minds of the Assembly. But that was 50 millennia ago. If they were apex predators, then what have they become now? Meanwhile, on the human ship, Captain Hyan watched in growing horror as more pods opened each day. The being who emerged from pod section 7 called himself Jay, and he was unlike the others. Where Jin and Tay had subtle biomechanical enhancements, Jay's modifications were impossible to hide. His left arm was pure living metal that shifted and changed shape according to his needs, while his right eye glowed with an inner fire that seemed to see through dimensions. Structural engineer Jay announced, his voice carrying the sound of grinding gears beneath human tones. I'll have our systems fully operational within the cycle. With what materials? Dr. Kira asked, scanning the ship's cargo holds. Vessel has been drifting for millennia. You have no raw resources. Jay smiled, his metallic arm extending toward the ship's hull. Where he touched, the metal began to flow and reshape itself, growing new components from seemingly nothing. Doctor, we stopped needing external resources long ago. Matter is just energy in a different form. Energy's just information waiting to be reorganized. In another section of the ship, a woman named Nari was demonstrating even more disturbing capabilities. She stood before a wall of complex alien technology, her consciousness flowing through the systems like water through a pipe. "Your computer networks are primitive but functional," she said to Officer Vex, who was monitoring her activities. "Your security protocols are adorable. Your entire galactic communication network is now accessible to us." "That's impossible," Vex protested. "Our quantum encryption is unbreakable." Nari laughed, a sound like silver bells mixed with electronic static. "Your encryption assumes that consciousness is limited to biological brains. We transcended that limitation long ago." The ship continued its transformation around them. It appeared to be a simple vessel, was revealing itself to be something far more complex. The whole rippled like living tissue, growing new sections and appendages that defied every law of physics the aliens understood. Ben emerged from the medical bay, his body a perfect fusion of human biology and advanced nanotechnology. When he spoke, microscopic machines in his breath analyzed the air around him, learning everything about the alien crew's biology and psychology. "Fascinating species," he reported to Jin. "They've achieved interstellar travel through conventional means, but they've never attempted true biological integration. Their potential is enormous but completely unrealized." Sue, the final human to awaken from the primary command pods, was perhaps the most unsettling of all. She appeared completely human until she began to move, revealing that her consciousness could exist in multiple bodies simultaneously, her awareness distributed across several biomechanical forms. "Fleet status report," she said, her voice coming from 3 different bodies at once. "All dormant vessels are responding to the awakening. Signal. Estimated time to full fleet activation. 72 hours. Fleet?" Captain Heon felt his blood turn to ice. "How many ships?" Jin turned to him, her expression carrying the patience of someone explaining simple concepts to a child. "Captain, we didn't travel across the void in a single vessel. We brought our entire civilization with us." Through the ship's viewports, they could see new contacts appearing on the sensors. Massive forms were emerging from what had appeared to be empty space, their stealth systems deactivating as they responded to the awakening call. "We seek a home," Jin said during one of their daily meetings. "Your galaxy has the resources we need, the worlds we require, the space for our people to flourish. And if we refuse?" Hyen asked, though he already knew the answer. Jin's expression didn't change, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. "Captain, you're thinking in terms of conflict and resistance. We've moved beyond such primitive concepts. Refusal implies that you have a choice in the matter." The ship's hull continued to grow and expand, weapons systems emerging from the living metal like flowers blooming in fast forward. Energy readings spiked as power systems that had been dormant for millennia came online. "We don't conquer," Tay added, his own biomechanical enhancements glowing brighter. "We integrate. We improve. We elevate. Your species will be far better. Off after we've finished with you." Across the galaxy, emergency fleets were mobilizing. The greatest military minds of a dozen species were planning strategies to contain this new threat. Battle stations that had protected the galaxy for millions of years powered up their weapons. But deep in the human ship, Nari smiled as she monitored their communications. "They still think this is a war," she said to Jin. "How wonderfully primitive." "Let them come," Jin replied, her consciousness already reaching out to touch the minds of her awakening people. It's time this galaxy learned what true evolution looks like. The storm was coming, and it wore a human face. The Eternal Builders had not manifested in physical form for over 1,000,000 years. These ancient beings existed as pure consciousness, their power so vast they could reshape reality with a thought. They had watched civilizations rise and fall, guided the evolution of entire species, and maintained the cosmic balance since the galaxy was young. But the awakening of humanity forced them from their eternal meditation. Across 12 star systems, the human fleet had spread like a living organism. Each vessel pulsed with biomechanical energy, their hulls breathing in space, as if the vacuum itself was atmosphere. The ships were no longer separate entities, but parts of a greater whole, connected by streams of living energy that flowed between them like neural networks. "This cannot be allowed," spoke the Prime Builder, its voice echoing across dimensional barriers. "These creatures violate the fundamental laws of existence." The Builders materialized their war forms, beings of pure energy that towered larger than space stations. Their bodies were geometric perfection, crystalline structures that bent light and space around them. When they moved, reality itself rippled. In their wake, unknown entities, the Prime Builder's voice boomed across all frequencies, reaching directly into the minds of every human in the fleet. "You will cease your expansion immediately. You will submit to judgment." The human response came not from communications arrays, but from something far more disturbing. The very fabric of space around the fleet began to sing with harmonious frequencies that formed words. "We hear you, Ancient Ones," the collective voice of humanity replied. "We know what you are. We know what you've done to this galaxy. You've kept them weak. You've kept them small." The Builders raised their crystalline arms, gathering the fundamental forces of the universe into weapons of unimaginable power. Stars flickered as their energy was drawn into the attack, entire planets shuddering as gravity itself was weaponized. "Reality dissolution," the Prime Builder declared, unleashing forces that could unmake matter at the quantum level. The attack struck the human fleet with the power of exploding suns. Space itself turned inside out as the Builders attempted to erase humanity from existence, not just destroying their bodies, but removing them from the timeline entirely. For a moment, the human ships seemed to flicker and fade. Then something impossible happened. The dissolution wave struck the fleet and simply stopped, absorbed into the living metal of the human vessels like water into a sponge. "Fascinating," came the collective human response. "Is that the best you can do?" From the deepest chamber of the lead vessel, a figure emerged that made even the awakened humans step back in awe. Commander Wu had been sleeping in the most protected pod, his awakening delayed until the fleet faced its greatest challenge. He was barely recognizable as human anymore. His body was a seamless fusion of organic tissue, quantum processors, and pure energy. Neural interfaces covered his spine like silver vertebrae, and his eyes held the depth of pocket dimensions. When he moved, reality bent around him, space-time adjusting to accommodate his presence. Commander Jin said, her own enhanced form seeming primitive compared to his evolution. "The Ancient Ones seek to unmake us." Wu smiled, his expression carrying the weight of eons. "Let them try." He raised his hand, and the human fleet responded as one organism. Every ship began to glow brighter, their biomechanical hulls expanding and reshaping. The energy streams connecting them intensified, creating a web of power that spanned multiple star systems. "You call yourselves gods," Wu said, his voice reaching across dimensions to speak directly to the Builders. "But we've seen real gods. We fought them. We consumed them. We became them." The Builders launched another attack, this time targeting the quantum foundations of reality itself. They attempted to collapse the local space-time continuum, creating a pocket of non-existence that would trap the humans. In dimensional limbo, the human fleet simply folded the attack into itself, using the collapsed space as fuel for their own growth. Impossible. The Prime Builder's voice carried notes of something it had never experienced before: fear. "What are you?" "You're what your galaxy needs to become," Wu replied. His consciousness expanded, touching every human mind in the fleet. Through their shared awareness, he showed the Builders the truth of humanity's origin. Images flowed through space itself. A galaxy consumed by war between organic life and artificial intelligence. Humanity caught in the middle, forced to adapt or die. The gradual merger of flesh and machine, the evolution beyond physical limitations. The transcendence into something greater than the sum of their parts. "We didn't flee our galaxy," Wu explained as Builder ships began to crack under the pressure of proximity to the human fleet. "We absorbed it. Every world, every species, every form of technology and consciousness, We became our entire galaxy. Transformation was becoming visible now. Human ships were growing larger, their technology adapting and improving with each passing moment. But they weren't spreading through conquest or destruction. Instead, they were healing in the Kepler system. A dying star that had been slowly poisoning its planets for millennia suddenly flared back to healthy life. The human fleet had somehow restored its nuclear balance, giving the system another billion years of stability. On Valdris Prime, a world torn by civil war for 3 centuries, the fighting simply stopped. The human presence had somehow harmonized. The conflicting factions, showing them solutions to problems they'd thought impossible to solve. "You're not invading," whispered Dr. Kira, monitoring the changes from her position on the original survey ship. "You're fixing everything." The builders watched in stunned silence as their perfect, controlled galaxy began to transform. Diseases that had plagued species for millions of years were being cured. Barren worlds were blooming with new life. Ancient technologies thought lost forever were being restored and improved. "This is our nature," Wu said gently, his form now so radiant that looking at him directly would blind lesser beings. "We are gardeners of reality. We take what is broken and make it whole." The Prime Builder's crystalline form began to dim. What do you want from us?" "To learn," Wu replied. "To grow, to help this galaxy reach its true potential. You've been its guardians for so long, keeping it safe but static. We offer something different. We offer evolution around them." The human fleet continued to expand, not through conquest but through integration. Every species they encountered was given the choice to remain as they were or to accept enhancement, to become part of something greater while retaining their unique identity. The age of stagnation was ending. The age of growth had begun, and at its center stood humanity. It's no longer human, but something far more wonderful and terrible. Gardeners of a galaxy finally ready to bloom. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council had never hosted such a gathering. Representatives from over 1,000 species filled the massive chamber, their varied forms creating a tapestry of life that spanned the evolutionary spectrum. Crystalline beings from the inner rim sat beside gaseous entities from the outer darkness, while mechanical consciousness units interfaced with pure energy beings who had transcended physical form eons ago. At the center of it all stood Commander Wu, no longer the being who had awakened from cryo-sleep just 1 year ago. His transformation was complete now, his form a perfect synthesis of human consciousness, his advanced biotechnology, and something that went beyond both. When he spoke, his words carried frequencies that resonated directly with the neural patterns. "Of every species present, honored delegates," Wu began, his voice like music composed of living starlight. "We gather today not as conquerors and conquered, but as gardeners and garden. We have come not to rule, but to cultivate." Chancellor Mex, the ancient leader of the Telepathic Union, projected his thoughts with careful precision. "Commander Wu, your species has brought changes to our galaxy that were unimaginable just cycles ago. Some call them miracles. Others fear them as the end of our natural order." Wu smiled, his expression carrying the warmth of a star, nurturing its planets. "Change is the only constant in the universe, Chancellor. The question is whether we guide that change or let it guide us." Through the great viewing windows of the assembly hall, the delegates could see the proof of his words. The capital world of Zentari Prime, once a carefully maintained but sterile administrative center, had become something magnificent. Towers of living crystal grew alongside biomechanical spires that housed thousands of species in perfect harmony. The sky itself seemed more vibrant, painted with aurora patterns that had never existed before human intervention. "The Korth Plague," spoke Admiral Zorks, his massive armored form shifting with emotion, has killed billions across 17 systems for over 3,000 years. Your Dr. Lee cured it in 18 hours. Dr. Lee stepped forward from the human delegation, her enhanced form radiating quiet confidence. Where once she had been a brilliant but limited scientist, she now existed as a hybrid consciousness that could process information at quantum speeds while maintaining perfect emotional intelligence. "Admiral, the plague wasn't a disease in the traditional sense," she explained, her voice carrying harmonic undertones. that made complex concepts instantly understandable. It was a recursive information loop that had infected the quantum foundations of biological systems. Once we understood that DNA is simply another form of programmable matter, the solution became elegant. Elegant, whispered Dr. Kira, her crystalline form flickering with wonder. You rewrote the fundamental code of life itself and called it elegant. In the observation galleries above, beings who had requested permission to witness this historic moment watched in amazement. Among them were species that had been bitter enemies for millennia, now working together on projects that would have been impossible alone. The Vorthan Collective, mechanical beings who had sworn to eliminate all organic life, were collaborating with the Biosymbiotic Alliance to create new forms of hybrid existence. Their ancient war had simply ... ended, not through conquest or treaty, but through the realization that their conflict had always been based on a false premise. How did you do it? Asked Representative Hex of the Machine Intelligence Council. Our races have been at war for 50,000 years. Your people arrived, and within months, the fighting stopped. Pilot Han, floating in a mobility field that defied several laws of physics, answered with a gentle laugh. We showed you both something you'd never seen before. True synthesis. You believed you had to choose between organic chaos and mechanical order. We proved you could have both. As if to demonstrate, Han's own form shifted subtly. Part of him was clearly human, but enhanced with biomechanical integration that made him capable of piloting vessels through dimensions that normal consciousness couldn't even perceive. His mixed fleets of human and alien ships didn't just move through space, they danced through it, their formations creating patterns that were both functional and beautiful. Your vessels, observed Captain Hune, still struggling to understand everything he'd witnessed. They don't follow our physics. They shouldn't be able to do what they do. Captain Han replied, You're thinking of physics as laws to be obeyed. We learned to think of them as suggestions to be improved upon. When consciousness and matter achieve true integration, the universe becomes far more cooperative. Chancellor Mex projected a complex thought image to the assembly, showing the galaxy as it had been just 1 year ago, static, controlled, but slowly dying. Then he showed it as it was now, vibrant, growing, alive with possibilities that had never existed before. Commander Wu, he said, your species spent 50,000 years in the void between galaxies. Were you planning this transformation all? Along Wu's expression grew distant, his consciousness touching memories that spanned eons. Chancellor, we spent 50,000 years learning what we were meant to become. Our original galaxy taught us that the choice between order and chaos, between organic and artificial, between individual and collective, was always a false choice. We learned to be the bridge between all possibilities. Through the council chambers, walls, they could hear the sounds of the transformed galaxy. Children of dozens of species played in gardens where flowers bloomed in colors that had no names, their laughter creating harmonies that resonated through dimensional barriers. Scientists from civilizations that had never cooperated now worked together on projects that would elevate entire star systems, the eternal builders. Those ancient gods who had shaped the galaxy for millions of years had joined the great work. Their reality-shaping powers, combined with human adaptability and alien innovation, creating wonders that surpassed anything in galactic history. We are no longer the species that fled our dying galaxy, Wu said, his words carrying the weight of transformation. We are no longer even entirely human. We are what the universe needed us to become, gardeners of possibility, shepherds of potential, bridges between what is and what could be. In the viewing galleries, a young Zephyrian child reached out to touch a human companion's biomechanical hand. Where their fingers met, brief sparks of shared consciousness flickered, hints of the greater unity that was slowly embracing the galaxy. The age of isolation is ending, Wu announced to the assembly. The age of true community has begun. Invite you all to grow with us, to become more than you ever imagined possible. Outside the council chambers, the transformed galaxy spun on. No longer a collection of separate worlds and species, but a single, vast organism learning to think and dream and reach for the stars. The galaxy had found its gardeners. The universe would never be the same. The Eondera Tricklod can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.